Hey, this video is to go over just the fundamentals of using background images on your page. Background images are dealt with differently than just regular images inside of your HTML, and we're going to go over that. So what you're probably used to here is an image tag, right, in HTML. And inside the source, you put the file path to the image, and then you put some alternate text here, and that displays the image, however big it is, inside of your web page, and you can control the width and the height and whatever from there. Background images function differently. They are attached to, not using the image element, but they're attached to another element. So let's say in this case, I create a div, and give it a class of container. And it works just like it sounds. Just for that element, it has a background attached to it that displays behind the content that you actually put inside of the element. So I'm going to say container, and the syntax is background. The property is background image, and then here you are the value is, you're used to href to link to something with a file path, source to link to an image with the file path. In this case, it's URL with parentheses, and inside of there you put the file path. So I've got an image down here that I just grabbed from CodePen that I'm linking to. I'm going to copy and paste that right into the URL there. So now we have an element container, class of container, and we have an image for it, but nothing's showing up on the screen. And that's because this div has no width. Well, it has a width because it's 100%, because it's a block element, but it has no height to it. And as you can see, if I add some content in there, that gives it some height. And then all of a sudden we can start to see a portion of the image. So you can only see as much of the image as you have height of that container, depending on the content or depending on whether or not you gave it a height. So in this case, just to see a bit more, let's give it a height of 500 pixels. Pixels, and we can start to see the most of this image. The problem here is that I've seen the image, you haven't seen the image. This is only a portion of the image. It's being displayed pixel for pixel, the entire size of the image. So a lot of it is being cut off here. In reality, you wouldn't want to use an image this large for this particular situation. You would want to take your image into Photoshop and size it down, because remember, the user has to download all of the data for the image, and you only want it to the size they're actually going to see. But in this case, that's what we're going to just work with for right now. So as you can see, nothing's happening as I resize it. But we can control this. We can use background size, and we can do different things. If we say auto, it kind of does what it's doing already. It's showing you pixel for pixel exactly what the image is. We can say 100%, and it's going to fit to 100% of its div that it's inside of container, which is 500 pixels high. And one thing we can take a note of here is, as we resize this, it resizes itself, but it's starting to repeat itself. And that may or may not be what you want to happen. And in that case, there's a property we can use called background repeat. And if we put no repeats, it's not going to resize itself. It's going to stay the same. We're still going to get that white area underneath it because it's still trying to observe the proper aspect ratio of the image. But at least we're not getting the repeating. Just to point out, there's other things you can do here. You don't have to say percentage. We could also say 50%, and it would be right there. We could say in pixels, 200 pixels. And if you just give it one value, it's just going to take that as the X value. So you can get an image just up in the corner. Even though the div is 500 pixels, you can give an image just up in the corner, something like that. Because as you'll learn later, you can actually layer images on top of images. You can have more than one image inside of an element as a background image, which can prove very helpful. But there's one more background size that I want to point out, and that is the one called cover. And this can be very helpful because what it does is it makes sure that the image always stays, well, we have it set. Let's change this really fast. Let me make a quick, to demonstrate this better. Okay, it bothers me, it's in all caps, sorry. Instead of 500 pixels, I'm gonna say 100 VH. And what that stands for, VH stands for viewport height. So the viewport, the window. So whatever height the viewport is at will be the height of the element. So now, no matter what I do when I size it, it's always going to sort of fill that square. I'm not getting any white borders on the side. It's doing some cropping automatically. It's going to do that. So you got to be okay with that if you're going to use this, but it keeps the image the entire size of the page. So if you have a web page where you want the image to constantly be the entire size of the page, this is the way to go. One thing we're noticing here is that if we go over this far, the globe is being cut off. And maybe the globe is one thing we really want to emphasize in this photo. We don't want it to start getting cut off. That's where we can use a property called background position. And I can use different values. I can say center, I can say top and bottom, I can say top left, I can say top right, I can say center right. I could do all sorts of things. So let's just say here, right. So it stays to the right. So now as I resize this, it's not getting cut off on the right, it's cutting off the left and the plant before it's ever going to touch the right-hand side. And you can also play around with pixel values in this as well. If you want to get really specific, there are definitely use case scenarios for that. But right left works really well. And that also works well if you say background size, let's say something like we did before, 200 pixels. It's going to go right. Right now it's right center. I could say right bottom, and it's going to go to the right bottom. I could just say center, and it's going to go right to the center there. So I can move it around. Like I said, this is really useful if you just have an image on top of something and you just want it in the corner below, or however. Like I said, you can have multiple background images. But for now, we'll just say right bottom, and I'll put this back at 100 VH. Okay, so this, why is that not going at 100 VH? Oh, it did background size, not height. Background size should be cover. This should be 100 VH. There we go. Got it. Okay. The other nice thing about this is that it automatically places the image in the background, so you can put content on top of it. So I could have a div, I'm going to call it card, and I could, I can put text in here, H1 travel the world, and I could use Flexbox to center and put in the middle and change the color and give it, I could give it a background color of, you know, like a transparent white or transparent gray so that it stands out on the background. I can add as much as I want inside of this container with the background image, and it'll all be displayed on top of that image. So I hope this has been helpful. There's a lot more you can do with background images, but this is a really good starting point, especially for the projects you're working on. So I hope this has been helpful. And if you have any questions, text or email me or ask me in class. All right. Thank you.